strife that had lasted for too long and caused for too much pain. Let us recognize the Premier who's just entered. And last week, or in the beginning of this week, we've already visited Toyota, and we want to thank them for the role they have played. That reopening of Toyota meant a lot for the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And the resilience that has been displayed by Toyota means that against all odds, we can still make the business strive in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The main aim of the government is to create an enabling and a conducive environment. But whenever there are gaps, intervene at the same time. So I want to thank you, Baba Wat, for ensuring that we continue to employ those people. And in that process, Toyota was maintaining the process of ensuring that not even a single job was lost under those conditions. So I think they deserve that. We remain convinced that to solve our country's challenges of prolonged slow growth and skewed development, as well as social disparities of economic inequalities, still requires strong leadership in political, cooperative, civic, religious sectors that together share the deep sense of commitment to creating a better for all our people. We do not expect total agreement on all issues. I think we are emphatic on that one. Nor do we anticipate that the leadership of each of one of these sectors are homogeneous in their thinking and actions. We in political sphere are as divergent as ever in our thinking, both within, across political parties or affiliation, and we know that leadership of the corporate sector are heterogeneous too. However, one key feature of good leadership is that they are prepared to put their country and put ahead of their own parochial interest. The leadership that negotiated our country's transition from apartheid as well as the end of gripping violence in our province were such a breed, and we hope this generation will still continue maintaining such. Between 2020 and 2022, our province has suffered tremendously from COVID-19 epidemic, the July 2021 unrest, and the massive floods experienced early this year around April-May. They have surely added enormous salt to the economic wounds we are still suffering, such as high interest rates, massive electricity constraint, rising inflation, and prices of fuel and others. These are, of course, in addition to high unemployment, rising levels of poverty, and deep inequalities, all of which threaten social cohesion, which we are here today. When we break our fast, let us ensure that we salvage and make sure that the environment of our South African economy continue to make amends and address the imbalances that has been created already. The mandate of this new leadership of the ANC in the province, which will permeate our government, is to pursue a unit of purpose and unity in action in tackling these seemingly intractable problems. I would like to believe that we have already, in the few weeks that we have been in the office, demonstrated rational leadership in how we have conducted ourselves and decisions we have taken in regard to the composition of government. Before you entered, Honorable Premier, the Program Director, Ubabongola Nyama, has already mentioned what have been achieved in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Historical, the enormous task, although he went aboard and suggested that he hoped the new chairperson can be a dictator of some sort in his DNA. So there must be an embedded characteristics of a dictator. I would like to dictate because it becomes easy just to lead. But ANC is a democratic organization. Comrade GU will kill me on the first day if I'm dictating, but that is on a lighter note. But nevertheless, the new leadership have not displayed any sign of triumphalism, but we are uniting in the decisions we took. I think that is also critical. He has also highlighted the role that has been played by Comrade Kuzen. I think we are one organization. Comrade Sihle Zigalala is our leader and is going to make sure going forward we unite the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We are one team that is going to make sure whatever he started, we are just going to follow on that footprint. So nothing has been broken. We are just going to ensure that we encroach and tap to what has been started. And I think we have brought more women into cabinet position and ushered in young leaders who have staying power. We have clearly been preoccupied with the questions of leadership, longevity, and innovation, and acted in a way that prioritizes unity over triumphalistic policy that can be and are certainly divisive. I've raised these questions of leadership like this because I want to bring another crucial aspect of our hard conversation into focus when we deal with business. You will know that the majority of ANC members are demanding radical socio-economic transformation, and this has, since the 2011, become an ANC policy. I think, amongst other things, we are here for that. And we've already spoken about the element of being candid. We must look into your eyes and indicate that for the province of KwaZulu-Natal to continue the South African large, those who owns the means of productions must be able to be equipped enough to understand that they must create a new spaces for others to participate. We can't have a country that has a majority who are at the periphery. You'll have problematic matters. You can't have a country with high unemployment and as the business thing that things will be normal. You can't have a country with so much inequality and we think that things will thrive. It means that we must just go and sing from the one same hymn book, that South Africa is a beautiful country with mineral resources, with a lot of deposit, but we must be able to share those things, which is what we are referring to on the issue of socio-radical economic transformation. Despite those that have labeled it a ploy to loot state resources, and those that have sought to make this genuine ANC policy a program for sectarian and even populistic actions, there is nothing malicious about radical socio-economic transformation. In fact, it will make things better because there is no scarcity of resources in the country like South Africa. I think God has given us natural rains. Even the global warming is here, the ozone layer has been damaged, but still as a country we are still able to manage and salvage. And that is why others are still tapping from our wisdom, tapping from our natural resources. As we have stated above, it is today in its deepest crisis since 1994, as a result of which it faces its most difficult challenges. The headwinds are strong, uncertain, severe, and the risk it faces seem obstinable. It is deindustrializing and high carbon intensive economy based on the extraction and export of raw minerals while importing of finishing goods. It is highly unequal with huge concentration of wealth among a tiny portion of the population, where the richest 1% of our population owns 42% of the wealth and bottom 10% live in dire poverty. 6 million South Africans who want to work are not able to, while over 70% of the unemployment are below the age of 35. This is not a basis for a stable society, a united, prosperous society. This ownership of homes, land, and other assets, that is the root of much of a dysfunctional and social tension in our society. This is intolerable and unsustainable if we were to maintain the status quo. So some of the things should change. It is this socio-economic injustice that is the root cause of the demand for radical economic transformation. So I just wanted to highlight that. We cannot afford to belittle or mock it because we do so at our own peril as both government and the haves of our society. When we criminalize the general aspiration of the poor and the middle strata for access to meaningful economic inclusion, we create the risk that no one among us will be secure, our progress will not be sustainable, and our society will not be stable. What we seek through this radical economic transformation is to change the structure and patterns of production and ownership of our economy, as well as its management and skill structure, so that they reflect the composition of the society and the pursuit of justice, of equality. Of course, vital to this program is the financial services of this transformation. We're glad that we are hosted by the bank. I think let us ensure that we structure the system that is going to benefit the new entrant, the youth of this country, the women, those who are living with disabilities. Our banking sector must drive a transformational agenda. In that way, you will be guaranteed that things will be smooth, and we all as a team, we are sure that we continue to make this country forward. In this regard, The provincial administration will build on current interventions such as Operation Vula, public procurement transformation, radical agrarian socio-economic, which is called RASET, township and rural economic revitalization, black industrialist program, and others. We did indicate it, and the Premier was emphatic on that point, Baba Wade, that Toyota can expand. What will stop Toyota to open a smaller branch inside eThekwini, in particular Umlazi Township, KwaMashu Township, when you're producing your parts? Let us be innovative. The fifth industrial revolution is able to make sure that we are dimensional in terms of our thinking. We're going to find ways to expand existing initiatives. Towards this effective, we will continue to seek more meaningful dialogue to enlist broad-based support from all sectors. Our meeting here today is part of that effort and commitment on all parts to engage in meaningful dialogue with corporate leaders. The question we seek to answer is how do we work together to increase black property owners, black managers in KZN, and to expand the skills base required by the economy, particularly among black people and women. We do not keep referring to black people because we simply want to deepen racial division or out of being indifferent to the principle of non-racialism. Our country, in particular our country's leadership, must be able to be willing, frankly, to engage in difficult dialogue about the country's problems, including those involving racial justice and the economy, without anyone feeling uncomfortable about it or feeling that they are being accused for the problems of the past. We know that KZN's vital core of regional integration, being host to the largest and busiest port in sub-Saharan in Durban, the biggest coal terminal in Richards Bay, Makeba, and responsible for critical freight logistic infrastructure. Much of our economic development discourse has tended to focus on grand economic schemes, but has ignored two critical questions at the end. First, it is not only important that our people be able to find jobs. Some amongst us must be able to create them as entrepreneurs. Secondly, small enterprise is big business. In Italy these days, their economy was solely dependent on the cooperatives. So it is another component, vital component, SOD 8 here, that we must broaden that scope. They have large cooperative schemes that are responsible for driving critical logistics, telecommunications, and even energy infrastructure investment. We must seek to make owning a successful small business a form of independent wealth creation open to anyone with necessary skills and capital. We must transcend the belief that economic participation is exclusive about finding a job and include entrepreneurship among the many options that we continually consider in our careers. True economic transformation requires giving back people the chance to be owners and employers in all sectors of the economy, starting with small business and involving business in mainstream economy. We must have the firm conviction that even if the Eastern Asian tigers reach the levels of development they did through embedded relations between government, the corporate sector, but involve workers and civil societal organizations in our situation, in a social compact, we will also reach the same and even higher levels of development. In conclusion, Program Director will look forward to strategic engagement, frank dialogue today, in the years to come as we build together the life of KZN. I thank you so much.
Another big round of applause. Indeed, MEC, the opportunity to turn this province around is there and big, and KZN remains the biggest economy in the country. We are still of view that with the two biggest ports, with the transportation network that we have, we can actually close the gap between that 34%, which is controlled by Gauteng, and 14% controlled by KZN. We have agreed with the Premier that She will come in right at the end to do the closing remarks and, of course, speak her mind out to us. Without further ado, let me call on stage Mr. Nigel Watt, the President of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to come and speak to us on economic growth priorities for KZN. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think the MEC set the way because he said we must get our message across in jokes, so I'm going to follow along his line. For those that you know me, I normally get into trouble at these type of events because I'm not too good at remembering the correct protocols, and I've got a sense today is going to be no different. So I'm going to be very different, and I'm going to start by wishing all the wonderful ladies in the room Happy Women's Day, Happy Women's Month. I think it's appropriate that we start there and thank them for their contribution that they do on a daily basis to everybody around them. So to all the ladies, thank you very much. On a more formal note, to our newly appointed Premier, good morning and thank you for joining us. To the new MEC and Chair of the ANC in the province, welcome. And to the Secretary General, welcome. To all other MECs present, head of departments and all other entities, to chamber CEOs, to mayors, and more importantly to my business colleagues present this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me. They say that you need to come to KZN and travel 2 hours north to go and see the Big Five, but I'm really confident that in the room this morning, from a business point of view, we've got the Big 20 here. I'm really confident that the top leaders of business in KZN are here representing the business industry. But I'm also mindful the other big part of our sectors are not represented here today, particularly the SMMEs and the township economy. And we go into dialogue, we must not forget those sectors as well today. I'm not going to share anything new with you today. What I'm going to tell you, we all know, and that's why we're here. I am going to make one request at the end, and I think that's really the important thing. But the fact that the 20 big leaders are in the room here today with their government colleagues shows that they're here to pledge, because I know they're not here to moan, and I think we'll find our way along this path. As the MEC said, today is not about a workshop. It's really just meeting each other, understanding each other, and we need to go forward and find that way in the workshops going forward. As I said, I'm not going to tell you anything new, so I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to recap where we are and just reiterate where we are, and I'm going to spend about 2 minutes at the end on my request. We know how important this province is in terms of the national contribution to the GDP, currently probably around about 16%. We know that the province can get very close to 20% regional contribution to the national GDP, and I think we need to set ourselves some aspirational targets like that. We're also very mindful, and earlier this year in June, many of us had an engagement with the President of the country at the exhibition centre to talk about the 3 big punches that this province has had: COVID, the unrest, and the floods more recently. In business, when I'm wearing my business hat, I always encourage the people, let's not blame people for those 3 big punches that have happened. It's happened. How do we get through it? And MEC, I want to thank you for acknowledging my other cap this morning and the resilience that we've had. But Toyota couldn't have done it without the business community and the support of the city, the provincial government and the national government. So it was a KZN team effort, and I want to thank everybody for that. I know that the business community here in the province is really optimistic about the KwaZulu economy recovering. And slowly, sector by sector, after these 3 big punches, the economy is recovering, some quicker than others, and some struggling a little bit, and we recognize that. As my role in the chamber, though, I'm really mindful about the SMME companies. Some of them haven't even restarted after COVID. Some of them are struggling and trying to decide whether they recover after unrest. And many were washed away during the floods. And as big corporates, we need to reach out to those people and keep them close to us. Premier, MEC and business leaders, I know that we're all here because we've made a commitment to rebuild, but we want to know how we do that together. We know that we need adequate support to rebuild the economy together, and I think yesterday that's a little bit about our message. We all know the devastation that COVID created, the unrest, and in so many of the areas that the flooding. And we know that this has made a lot of the big corporates uneasy, and there's a lot of talk about disinvestment. I don't want to talk numbers today, but there are very few companies that have disinvested, and there are very many companies that are committed to rebuild and reinvest here. And it's engagements like this that will give those leaders the confidence to decide what they need to do. To ensure that we unlock the growth prospects in our province, we need to work together as business and government to mitigate risks against the following items. The aged infrastructure and lack of maintenance. We cannot ignore it, we know it's real, but we need to work together to mitigate this. The crime and grime, and I know some of my colleagues will talk about some of the improvements that we've been able to do together. And I think coming out of July last year, we've seen some really good initiatives between the public and private sector to say that we can make improvements in crime and grime. We have to address the inconsistent supply of utilities, primarily water and electricity, and we have to do it together. After the flooding, we've seen some really good examples of some public and private initiatives to work together to provide the basic utilities. I'm looking for Gavin, but I know Tongaat in the north really work together with the city there, and that's the type of examples that I'm using. Coming out of the floods, many of the people in some of the low-lying areas, many of the businesses now find themselves in a position where they're uninsurable. And together we need to put those businesses in a position that they are insurable and they can get future investments. Then the last big one, and it's last not because it's the least important, probably I view it as one of the most important. We need to work together with the SOEs to transform the port and the rail sector, as well as the N3 arterial into the sub-Sahara continent. We know the challenges we've got, but I'm really confident, wearing my business cap, that if we work together through public and private partnerships, we can have the best port in the southern hemisphere. We do have a really good rail infrastructure, but we need to make sure it works 24/7. Driving to Maritzburg from Durban at the moment, I think many of us will attest, Vanessa, I know you do it regularly, that it's not so easy. And when I did it on Friday, I calmed myself by saying, when this is finished, in hopefully about 18 months' time, it'll probably be one of the best four-lane highways in Southern Africa. So we need to be patient. But the construction that's there is a commitment that the local government want to make the infrastructure better, and we need to be patient as that happens. As organised business, the following needs to be prioritised to bolster economic growth. Improve stability and security, the ease of doing business. As we come back from these three big punches, we need to work together to understand, still ensuring good governance, how we can fast-track some of the red tape. It's critical. If we need to drive economic growth quickly, we need to say, how can we find a smarter, quicker way to get through the red tape, but ensuring the governance is still upheld. Strategic, collaborative engagements between the public and private sector are fundamentally key. Everywhere I talk, I will bring that home, because if we don't work together and we don't share our knowledge and we don't share our infrastructure and resources between public and private, we will not grow the economy, and we have to do that together. And then most importantly is the joint agreement of strategic catalytic projects and infrastructure projects that will grow the economy quickly together. I was with the mayor maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, and we were in Durban, and we were slightly higher up on the Bria, and we had a really good advantage point over the city of Durban. And I said to the mayor, I said, Mayor, what do you recognize as we look across the skyline of the city? And I prompted him, I said, I can only count 2 cranes. If you go to a lot of other countries, particularly in Africa, and more importantly in sub-Saharan Africa, and you go to the cities, you can count a lot of cranes on the horizons. Cranes tell you that there's economic growth. And I want to drive through Durban, and I want to drive through parts of this province, and I want to see cranes everywhere, because if there are cranes, there's economic growth, and we need to work together to do that. I said today I'm not going to tell you anything new, and I know in the last 4 minutes I've told you nothing new. That's why you're here, because of the positions that you all lead. But I said I'm going to make one request. Several people in the room have heard me make this request, and today will be the third time that I'll make the request. And I also recognize as I make this request that I am part of the solution, and I'm also very clear up until now I don't really know what the answers are, and that I need to work with everybody in this room to find that solution. So here's the request. We have in the province, under the provincial leadership, a robust economic council that has 14 sectors represented through it, and they're trying to drive the economic growth. And I'm not suggesting that the Economic Council doesn't have a role to play. I think it plays a fantastic role. But now, for the third occasion, I'm saying as business and government together, let's really unpack this economic command centre. We saw under COVID, both nationally and provincially, when we had the COVID Economic Command Centre, or JOC, or whatever it was named, that really quickly we could get things going. And we really quickly, between government and between business, decisions were made, we worked together, we collaborated, and we got through COVID, right? I really believe if we put some structures in place, and this is what I'm struggling with, because how do we do the how? I think there's some tips and there's some learnings through the 8 asides that have been in place for many years with the municipalities. How do we get this economic command centre between business and provincial government and provincial leadership to say, we're going to take this GDP contribution from 16 to 20%, and we're going to do through this command centre? Because we've had these 3 big punches, and it's a big crisis, and the economy drives why we're here today. And I think we need to find a way through these workshops to say, we're going to have this economic command centre. It's going to address the key sectors, 14 of them across this province, and we're going to drive towards that 20%. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Nigel. We will be rushing the program because we want to get to item number 7, open discussion, so that we really could allow everyone in the room to say a few words. Let's move to Ms. Palisa Pili, the CEO of Durban Chamber of Commerce, who is speaking to us on KZN business environment required for successful investment. Over to you, Pili.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moses Tembe, the co-chair of KZN Growth Coalition and the organizer of this great meeting that we have this morning. The Premier of our province, Ms. Nomsa Dube-Ncube, the MEC for Etia, and also the leader, the chairperson of the ANC in the province, Mr. Siboniso Duma, the former Premier of our province, MEC Sihle Zigalala, the presidents and CEOs of all the chambers represented. Good morning, captains of industry. Good morning. The president of the chamber has already spoken about the key areas, including the big need of infrastructure, especially around the water and sanitation, to ensure that we start getting really going. And I'd just like to reiterate again to yourself, Premier, that the idea of having the Economic Command Council is really a very good idea, and it can really help us in ensuring that we do get quick economic recovery, and any issues that are hurdling into making sure that these infrastructure issues are done, we're able to do them jointly. I'm not going to go through this presentation of the impact of the unrest, because I think everybody is aware of it and the number of jobs that were lost. My focus this morning is really going to be around security of the province, as well as crime and grime, which will really make our province become very, very attractive. As you are aware, with last year's unrest, our province really became a very challenged province and undesirable from a business point of view, where I know a lot of businesses, the big businesses, decided to be resilient and stay, but we've got a lot of medium businesses and small businesses that actually left our province, which was absolutely devastating. So as a province, it is very, very important that we get into a situation where we can boldly go out to investors and the business communities and assure them that KZN is a safe place to invest. Without security, how do we encourage businesses to make sure that they invest? So we've got a couple of issues that really have been affecting us as the business community in terms of growing our economy and even rebuilding. The first one that I'm going to talk about is business forums. I think all of us here are aware of the challenges that are faced with business forums. And I'm here to really present a possible solutions that certain policies need to be addressed to actually ensure that this issue of business forums is really arrested as quickly as possible. We all aware that right now, especially for the foreign-owned businesses in the townships, there's already a protection fee that most of these businesses have to pay. It's only a matter of time until these mafias come to corporates and other big businesses to request protection fees. So this issue is a very, very big concern to us. And we'd like certain key things and commitments really from government when we're talking about business forums, such as reviewing policies of areas such as the Firearms Act, where how I can explain it is a business forum leader will say, I'm working, he'll go to a site with people with 20 guns, big rifles, and he will say, these are my bodyguards, and I'm not intimidating anyone. But we know that the businesses are going to be very much intimidated, and there's nothing that law enforcement can do because these guns are legal, because they're owned by security industry. So that Firearms Act really needs to be looked at. And another important part is, the business forums really need to be seen as a serious commercial crime, because this is really sabotage to the economy. It has really prevented a lot of projects to go ahead, and now they've even graduated, not just from construction, but to go and intimidate businesses to say, we want to see who your suppliers are in these other areas, and we demand that you give us a take in it, which is completely unacceptable. Another key thing that we really would like you to take away is we would like a policy to be reviewed that individuals that are guilty of these crimes of intimidation of businesses must be arrested immediately and have their bank accounts frozen and reported to SAPS. That is the only way that we can be able to stop this issue. Because if we let it go on, it will end up being ungovernable, like what we have with the Cape floods. But I would like to say to you, Premier and the leadership here, is that as the business community, we would like to commend Commissioner Mkhwanazi, because from a crime point of view, he's been absolutely exceptional. From a PPP point of view, post the looting, which is on my next slide, we have established a PPP that is chaired by Mr. Graham O'Connor, who is the chairperson of SPA. He's here with us this morning. And this has really, really done quite a lot of good impact in terms of being proactive, working closer with SAPS, private security, as well as community policing forums to prevent any threats that come into our province. But there's another key part that we still need to remember on looting. We still have a big problem. When trucks are stuck anywhere in the province, they are still looted. So it is still a big problem for us, and it's really creating a very bad negative name for us as a province. So the act that we've actually requested that needs to be looked at is the Intelligence Act. We got private intelligence that we're working with in terms of being proactive, but really intelligence belongs to government, and we really need this act to be reviewed and redone. Torching of trucks, we all know the issue of ADTF, but we're really happy to present to you today that there's a lot of work that we've seen happening, and when it comes to the ADTF and the intimidations that they've actually been having, again, Commissioner Mkhwanazi, working with the private sector, has done absolutely exceptionally, and we're now more proactive and able to ensure that our N3 corridor is not a playground to be hijacked and compromising of our economy. Another key problem that we really would like to be addressed is corruption. Corruption, is really, really devastating our economy. Right now, for projects, everybody has become so corrupt, even the most junior official in any municipality or any government official. For them to do a basic job, their jobs, they will want to be paid something or given something. It is completely unacceptable. So we really need corruption to be really heavily addressed. It's a big threat. And one of the policies that we'd like the KZN government to really look at is to really bring back an organization such as the Scorpions, because now we see how the Hawks are ineffective when it comes to corruption. The Scorpions were more independent, and they were able to actually make sure that people are addressed and corruption is addressed accordingly. I'm going to move over to another area, of course, of crime and grime, special focus on the CBD. We all know that in our CBD, it's a crime hub for criminals. Illegal immigrants have taken over, and it's really become unattractive, for business. We really would like to request a stronger partnership and a stronger focus. We, as the business community, we can be able to reinvest in the CBD if crime is sorted out and it's clean. We've seen how dirty our city is. We've seen how dirty our roads is. Everywhere, it is really unacceptably clean. We get embarrassed as the business community even when we have big tourism events or when people are coming. We cannot be driving on the freeways or on the roads where there's litter everywhere. Nothing is maintained in terms of the grasses. When you drive on the M4, you see how dirty the M4 is. This is coming to the main hub of Mhlanga from the CBD. It is truly embarrassing, and we really would like a proper priority, in terms of really ensuring that our province comes back to the previous glory state it had of ensuring that there is proper cleanliness. I'm not going to go into much detail of crime and grime in terms of the stats, but they speak for themselves, and what it has done for our CBD, especially in terms of disinvestment of some of the big companies that have been there for years, and nothing has been done. So we really need to make sure that we get into a situation where we fix these areas and then ensure that disinvestment comes. I'm not going to get into these things, these other recommendations, because I think I've spoken about them, like improvement of efficiency and SAPS and Metropolis. I spoke about the great partnership that we already have, most of these things that I've actually added here as recommendations are things that we're already doing with Commissioner Mkwanazi as well as Metropolis. And we have said, from a province point of view, eThekwini municipality will be a pilot project for this PPP. When it works and all the other structures are clear and they know what the mandate is, then it should be rolled out to the rest of the province. Thank you very much. I think this is my last slide, and we're really looking forward to greater partnership that will ensure that there's more investment into our province. Thank you.
Well done, Pali. Another big round of applause. Palisa has raised truly top-of-mind issues for business, the issue of crime and grime. Graham O'Connor, the chairman of SPA, is the chair of an initiative called GTF, which is really a private sector initiative that is doing its part in ameliorating the challenges around crime and grime. But having said that, Mr. Duma and MEC is present here, the issue of security really is one of state. So really, if we can't get that right, in fact, it's a huge challenge for business right now. We're talking investment. We would like to get international investors to come and put more money. But if we can't get the security sorted, really, it remains a huge, huge challenge. And many investors, if I can tell you, they like to invest. They would invest in a country, but they truly like to bring their families to see what they've done. So you really want every investor, you want every tourist to feel very safe in the streets of KZN and our cities. And ultimately, really, if we can't do the basics right, like cleaning the streets and ensure that our roads are safe, what can we do? So those basics, I think, they must be attended to. One other issue that has not come through in the deliberations this morning is one that talks to the cost of doing business in KZN. I'm not second guessing this one because we actually did a study. KZN has become a very expensive province to do business from a rates point of view. I can tell you now, many developers are not coming here simply because we've become too expensive. So something has to be done to address that. We understand the reasons why it's happening, but our view is that if we get more investment into the province and increase the rate base, we'll be able to drop our rates because we'll be proceeding from a much bigger space. So it's something that we have to put our minds to. Let me invite to the stage Mr. Paul Ngema, who's the president of NAFCOC, to address us on inclusive growth and rural and township development. Thank you. It's your moment of glory, Paul.
Sanbonan, good morning to everyone. I want to greet ANC chairperson and MC EDT, Mr. Sponiso Duma, KZN Prima and co-chair of the KZN Growth Coalition, Ms. Nomsa Dube Ngube, co-chair of the KZN Growth Coalition, Babu Dembe, President of Durban Chamber, Mr. Nigel Ward, the CEO of Durban Chamber, Mrs. Palesa Pili, and also all the MECs present. I don't want to, unfortunately, in the interest of time, I'm not going to mention all their names. I can see there are so many dignitaries there in this auditorium. I can see that, there are also people are coming from various, companies, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate and thank for the opportunity. If you are a small business, we don't normally get such an opportunity to be listened to. I'm being asked to speak on the inclusive growth of the township economy. Of course, when we talk about township economy, we also would love also to refer to the rural economy. We put them together because the two really, that's where we always feel that we're being left out. Simply put, economic growth, that is, inclusive growth means inclusive growth. It means economic growth that is distributed fairly across society and creates opportunities for all. That's all what it is. And most of the time, SMMEs or people in the township, they always feel being left out. And we can see that, I remember there was another group that visited our office here in the city as NAFCOC. They were conducting a survey about how do we close the gap between the first and the second economy. We remember our former President Thabo Mbeki always referred to the two economies in the country, that we need to close that gap. So I'm excited this morning. I'm addressing big business. And all that we are saying as SMMEs, take us along. If you take us along, you'll sleep at night. That's all what we are saying this morning. There are approximately 513 main townships in South Africa, 43 of which are based in KwaZulu-Natal. The townships were created by the apartheid government to segregate black South Africans from white South Africans, Population Restoration Act of 1950 and the Growth Areas Act of 1950 legislations was the basis to force black South Africans, colours and Indians to live in the townships away from the whites-only designated areas. Most townships today remain clustered and on the periphery of cities and towns. The townships' locations were deliberately chosen to separate from the economic bustle of city centers. To this day, South African townships remain as they were initially conceived, that is, spatially disconnected and alienated from mainstream economy activity. I'm not going to bore with the statistics in the interest of time. All I'm going to say that most township SMMEs do not grow and develop like those in the formal sector, but rather survive or are survivalist. The townships and rural areas where the black people reside, they lack available land to conduct businesses, struggling with services and infrastructure, water, electricity, and so on and so on. We all know. I always, whenever I'm addressing audiences of this nature, if I happen to get an opportunity, I always say, we know where we come from. I'm coming from a shore. If I were to become an MEC today, I know even the bridge that I'll always, when I lived R66 to Eshowe, the bridge that before I reach my father's homestead, I know the bridge that I'll go and fix. So we already have, or some of us are coming from Ndwe. We know what we want, what our people need. We don't have to theorize about it and statistics. We just have to do it. What are the differences? So I'm going to get straight to the difficulties and challenges towards building and developing township and rural economies. The first critical challenge is the lack of accurate information. To make critical economic interventions, accurate information is required for each township. The information must include the township's gross domestic product. This will help to identify economic sectors and economic gaps. The supply side of the township economy, that is key producers of goods and services, key industries and their value chains. The demand side of consumer side and its propensities. This includes the living standards measures, the demographics and socio-economic profile of the township. Secondly, we need to utilize all resources adequately and strategically. We must include universities. Universities can assist to develop accurate economic data and develop models for each township and rural areas. The third challenge is that most SMMEs are not properly registered or are undocumented. This means that they are invisible and often unable to attract and benefit from financial and non-financial support programs and initiatives. Various non-government organizations and community-based organizations can play a a crucial role in helping businesses in the townships and rural areas to be registered and comply with statutory requirements. The fourth challenge has established the Township and Rural Entrepreneurship Program, whose focus is on strengthening information businesses, creating markets for small, medium, and micro enterprises, and promoting localization and industrialization in the township. In terms of this program, the key focus will be on supporting businesses in the automotive industry, such as motor mechanics, panel beaters, auto fitness centers, and auto spare shops. In addition, the bakery, confectionery, and butchery industries will also be targeted. Let us be clear, as important as the TREP is given the importance of township in the country, this is hugely neglected area that requires much more concerted policy attention. The challenges are multifaceted, so piecemeal actions and initiatives will not suffice. A comprehensive approach is needed to turn around township economies into vibrant centers of high economic activities and sustainable industries. The government's role: ensure that there is accurate economic data for each township and rural area. Establish township and rural economic councils. This one becomes important. I don't know whether Mr. Nigel Watt was also mentioned on that one. We feel that the establishment of these bodies would help a lot, at least to contribute towards the closing of the gap between the first and the second economy, because everybody will participate. Promoting manufacturing and productive activities. The government must drive localization and beneficiation projects, industrial development. The government promotes entrepreneurship by reviewing legal and regulatory frameworks. Make it easy for people to open businesses and access funding. Sponsor courses to open businesses. Set up official businesses linkage channels with the private sector through cluster enterprise development. The government must invest in the township and rural economies. This includes hosting meetings and events in the townships and building up government offices and industrial hubs in the townships. We appreciate and we see that, especially at a municipality, our mayor has done a lot towards at least taking some meetings to the township. I know that we support a lot, especially Max. Maybe I don't know whether Max, because it's so, he's got such a beautiful venue. It's very attractive, but we want to see the government going deeper than that, not just in the selecting beautiful areas. I see that there's something also, I did not know about Octavia Hotel in Jebeni. It's just a municipality. There's another event that I'll be joining there, which really is very encouraging. So, but we need to see more of this happening. Malls in the townships must have areas set aside for local entrepreneurs at discounted rental rates. Talking about malls, I've talked about malls, that these malls do not bring anything really mentioned people. They were forced upon us. We don't want the so-called malls in our townships because we don't contribute. Instead, they displace SMMEs. I'm making one example. Any mall that is coming in the township, the anchor tenants must be Checkers, not Checkers, Checkers for the middle class. It must be ShopRite, not Pick and Pay, Game, and Spar. Spar will own Tops. When they come, they own Tops. The liquor industry is monopolized by the anchor tenants. If you go to Mlazi, there will be bowl stores, but those bowl stores will be displaced by these guys. If you want to have a bowl store within the mall, the developer will tell you that no, already Spa, Tops is reserved for Spa. That's big business. It's not supporting SMMEs in the township. It's displaying small business. So I wish leadership could do something about it. We have been speaking about this thing. I can remember that, I can even say that I addressed this thing at Greyville. I think our former premier was there. I thought he was going to do something about it, but even today. But I'm just saying that there are things that don't help us at all. With banks to offer favorable funding for SME with government contracts. I know that, thanks very much FNB for hosting us today. Make sure that timely and appropriate enterprise development advice and support measures are as widely available to township enterprise as it is to non-township business. In conclusion, townships are home to most black people in South Africa. Therefore, it makes sense to turn them around to become key focus of economic development going into the future. The private sector must commit to sourcing from the township and rural SMEs through enterprise and supplier development programs as set out in the BBE Act. Government lead by example by actively sourcing from township businesses and paying them strictly within 7 days to assist with cash flows. I repeat, if they could pay us on time, so that, because we need cash flows, not even after 30 days, not even after 60 days, if they can pay us on time, those who happen to access tenders. Universities and NGOs, community-based organizations, and the private sector must all be rallied behind this gigantic task of reviving the townships and rural areas. It is the only way to improve the lives of people in South Africa. But Chair, I just want, I've got, when I informed the organization that I've been speaking before such august audience, and then I just want to read one request from our youth that was written to me. It was sent to me by one of our youth entrepreneurs. I said I'll ask the chair. I know that Moses there, but most of the time we always fight for taking long. This is the SMS. I'll just read it. It's from Sabelo Damini, and a young entrepreneur. Is in our youth chamber. Inclusive growth, rural and township, leadership. As we all know, the significance of wholesale and retail in our economy. It is unfortunate that we black business people are minimized to rural and township. We have aspirations. Part of what the government and the bigger enterprises is assistance to growing or expanding our establishment. assist us with agreements that we allow the essentials like ATMs, fast foods, assistance with security. SAPS should not only patrol when they are checking if we are adhering to regulations. Issues are avoided if there's constantly visibility of law enforcement. We need equal chance to funding so our establishment can grow and be able to compete with the foreign nationals. I know that's a very thorny one. And I think I'm so happy in our promise there's no Tutula. If there is Tutula, no Tutula was launched, but we don't. I think we can do it ourselves without Tutula. We need equal chance to funding so our establishment can grow and be able to compete with all. We need stricter or enforcement the list when it comes to regulations of foreign national shops. There are some products that are not even SAPS approved. We have potential to own or build our own malls. We need to be consulted as all these malls that we hear about when construction is about to begin. They affect our revenue. I'm reading from the young person. We need to be shareholders or stakeholders. We have locations that already have goodwill. If we are consulted, it's easy to avoid crises like the unrest we experienced the past year. We thank you, leadership. And one more I'm going to read now for the last one, Chair. This is now a request from, it's not from one of our business leaders, and he happened to be our former president, Ubab Mabunda. He said, good morning. Royal Mutual Bonds and Guarantees P2I Ltd in partnership with GPB Africa and Middle East and Family Best Oil Group as a consortium have submitted a bid to buy Supref 100% to save jobs and to create an inclusive oil industry, especially the tax industry, which is the largest consumer of petroleum products. We hope that KZN government will support us. In other words, they heard that I'll be speaking to the brand new leadership. So they're just asking for the support. Finally, we would like to pledge our support to the new leadership, Mashinini, we pledge support to the new leadership. We want we really appreciate how it's configured. It includes everyone. I remember one thing that you have said that touched me as a person. At the policy conference, well, the comrades were restless because the president, number one, was going to speak. But there's one thing you said which touched me, because I believe that if we respect one another, we can always pull through together. You said, comrades, we know that we have got issues, but we cannot disallow the number one to address us. Otherwise, we've got no organization. All that I'm saying too, this morning you cannot ignore SMMEs. Big business, take us along. We grow the economy so that at night we can sleep, we can